the first edition of Ronline Chat. If you like the name or if you hate the name, Peter McGuff is to blame. He came up with it. He's awesome at these things. Also, excuse my crappy lighting, but Shawn is lit very well, and that's all that really matters here. First of all, the reason we're talking today, the reason we're making this video, is obviously because of the whole situation with yourself in Dallas. And it's been the talk of the industry all week long since last weekend's Arnold Classic Australia, which, it's odd. You'd think Brendan Curry's win would be a big deal, but this is sometimes how the industry goes lately. It's more TMZ type stuff. Everyone else has made videos about this, tons of Facebook posts. Everyone else has commented on it. So I think it's only fair that here at MD, Shawn being with MD, we get your take on all this. So let me go back to where I think it all began, which was 3 weeks before the Arnold Classic Ohio. There was a video made of Dallas going to Pittsburgh to pose for Jim Mannion. Right. And Dallas didn't look very good at that time due to, later he explained why, but all we knew was we saw this video and he did not look 3 weeks out from a major contest where he was going to be going up against the likes of Cedric and company. So you did an Unleashed right after that. Yeah. And expressed your opinion, as you always do, as a reporter, as someone who's been in this game for 30 years or so. Mm-hmm. And he was not pleased. So, explain to everybody why you think he felt the way he reacted, the way he did to your opinions, and why you said what you did.
Well, let's put some context to this. I mean, I think he said he was a psychologist or went to school for psychology or something, and I'm crazy. The proper context is this is nothing new. Like you said, I've been doing this. I was doing this even while I was competing on stage, which is analyzing the competition, being paid for my expert opinion. I come from a place of a keen eye. I mean, the last time I was in my Mr. Olympia competition in 2001, I was the color commentator for Fox Sports Net, analyzing the competition for a national television audience. Okay, so there are some off-the-cuff and off-color comments that Dallas made about me that certainly I couldn't take personally. I just had to roll off. I saw this kid doing what I did when I was a little bit younger than him, going in front of Jim Mannion to get a second opinion, an expert opinion. His crew, he had his coach, he had his sponsor. They all stood in front of Jim Mannion. He went through some mandatory poses. And my job in Unleashed, it's called Shawn Ray Unleashed for a reason. It's uncensored. It's my natural, visceral gut reaction to what I'm seeing. I couldn't talk about something that I wouldn't see. So if he didn't want it out there in the universe, don't videotape it and stick it up there and look for Facebook likes and pats on the backs, because you're going to have your critics. I'm a critic. But also, when you look great, I would have been the first one to say, this guy, he's on time, man. He's perfect. He's dialed in. He's tan. He's got a flat stomach. He's posing like a professional. This kid's got his act together. But that wasn't what I saw. And so I spoke from a place of what I saw. But mind you, I didn't start a thread about Dallas Carver. Right. I chimed in after watching it like a lot of people did. We read some of the comments on our boards. Then I did my Shawn Ray Unleashed like we're doing right now. Yeah. I gave my opinion. And my opinion on that was probably one of the worst Dallas McCarvers that I'd seen since he came on the scene. I mean, when he won the North America Championships, when he came out here and won the California Championships, phenomenal on point. This is a kid that's gone through at least 3 trainers that we know of. All right? Yeah. I believe he worked with Hani Rambod. I think he worked with Matt Jensen, and I was working with Chad. Right. And just has his foot on the gas. I don't know. I mean, when I was 25 years old, I was getting 3rd place in the Mr. Olympia, to give you perspective. I had 3 homes, and I was traveling the world, and I was very independent. But we're dealing with a guy who got 2nd place 3 weeks later, okay? Yeah. And after prejudging, I looked at that analysis, and I said, yeah, he got 2nd place to Cedric. Mind you, he was 8th place to Cedric's 7th place in the Olympia. And so I pretty much saw the same repeat of what was happening. Cedric more mature, Cedric a little bit drier, still not 100%. And Dallas looked considerably better 3 weeks later in Ohio, but still not where he needs to be. He's young. He goes down to New Zealand, and the kid winds up getting beat by Brandon Curry. Probably never saw it coming. Brandon Curry was the original Arnold Classic Brazilian champion in 2013. Dallas coming off second place to Cedric, who was an Olympian. Brandon Curry, not so much, kind of under the radar.
Yeah.
And what happens in New Zealand? Dallas McCarver shows up. Brandon Curry makes quick work of him, and he winds up on Facebook crying to his fans and feeling like a failure. I mean, I get it. He's traveling, he's young, he's tired, he's fatigued, he just got beat. And he ran to the internet like most of these millennials do and spilled his guts out and was very emotional. So then we go to Australia. I walked up to him backstage. I said, hey, are you mad at me? I hadn't spoken to Dallas. I had no reason to. And the first thing he said is, yeah, I'm mad at you. You're hell right. I said, well, what's up? You didn't ask me the backstory. I said, what do you mean? Well, you should have called me to ask me why. Like, I look so bad. Like, I'm thinking to myself, why am I going to call you and ask you why you look like crap in front of Jim Mannion? It doesn't make any sense. I was 25 before as well. I made the drive out to Woodland Hills in front of Joe Weider and did exactly what Dallas McCarver did for the constructive criticism and feedback to energize my run-up to the competition. But I went there. I was shaved. I was, tanned. I was on an empty stomach. I had the poses down. I was going to get expert opinion and advice that would help me for the Mr. Olympia. So watching Dallas, I saw myself. And I just thought, what a wasted opportunity. What is the kid doing? I mean, you have your coach there. You have your sponsor there. Who's guiding this machine? It was a train wreck, Ron. And I spoke critically from a place that, what a blown opportunity. And why did you film it? And why did you put it out there? And apparently it came out that he had been sick for 3 days. He said he'd been throwing up for 3 days. And I know that if I throw up for 3 days, I'm probably going to wind up getting more ripped and shredded. But I do know that I wouldn't go down and pose in front of someone of Jim Mannion's caliber who started the NPC and has seen the world's best physiques. So you cancel that trip. You tell your coach, you tell your sponsor, you tell your people, I'm not feeling right, man. But then you go in with a camera and you allow it to be videotaped, and then you allow it to go out into social media. Everybody's a critic at that point, but that's what I do. If he had looked like $1 million, I'd have been swinging from the lamps going, this is Arnold Classic champion. This guy's going to be next Mr. Olympia. I'm a cheerleader when it comes to the sport. I'm more passionate about it than most. You know that. I've grown up with you and Dave Lieberman and Bob Chick. I mean, we're historians just because of the years we have in this business. And here I have a 25-year-old kid that doesn't like me being critical of him. Then he's weighing a pseudo-friendship based on me critiquing him. And you would have thought that my opinion at that stage doesn't matter. You went in and you corrected a lot of mistakes and you got second place to Cedric.
Yeah.
Right. You went to New Zealand and you got beat by a former Arnold Classic champion from Brazil. That's nothing to be ashamed of. Brandon Curry's the real deal, man. He won the USA. He's eating the anabolic chicken. He's working with the camel crew. Keep your head up, man. You got 2 second place and you're headed to Australia. We get to Australia and the only thing you can think about is, uh-oh, here comes Shawn Ray. F Shawn Ray. So he came at me like, no, dude, I want nothing to do with you. Now, perspective. He's surrounded by some people that are not the biggest Shawn Ray fans.
Yeah.
Okay, very complimentary of Dave Palumbo and his coach, Chad Nichols, and Aaron Singerman. All three would never pick me up if my car broke down on the side of the freeway. So Dallas is speaking not from personal experience. He doesn't know me. But he's heard some things about me, and he's formulated an opinion about me, and that's fine. The kid goes on stage. I introduce him to come out to prejudging. He goes on stage, and he can't make it through the first round of call-outs, nearly faints. They drag him off the stage. They lay him down for almost 45 minutes to an hour, stick an IV in him, pumping some electrolytes into the kid, and he's thrown up backstage. And what does he do when that's over? He comes back to the night show, addresses the crowd, and tells them he's got an upper respiratory bronchial infection. Sounds like a big, big word. I've had that before.
Yeah.
And I know I can barely talk. I know that I'm coughing up phlegm. I know that the last thing I want to do is go into a bodybuilding show. And then he makes that announcement Sunday while everybody else is at the expo and eating and enjoying the sun of Australia. This kid's in the gym. And then he's at his computer talking about what? Not his experience in Australia, but talking about me. He categorized like 6 bullet points of F. Shawn Ray. I just didn't understand it because I would have been the last person I'd have been thinking about if I was Dallas McCarver. Now, where the rubber hits the road is, I've said it. In 2 or 3 years, he's got all the tools to be a Mr. Olympia champion. I think Phil Heath may go on to win 9. I don't know if he'll go on to win 10. He may be satisfied with 9, pack it up, and go start his life and move on. Yeah. Dexter Jackson will be in his 50s, and he'll probably be on to something else. I'm not sure Sean Roden still wants to do it that far, but Dallas McCarver won't even be 30 years old.
Yeah.
And what we saw was a young, immature physique that needs maturity. It needs time like wine. It needs to age and mature, and he's got to do the business of training and work on his posing. He looks worse now where he's at in this stage of his career than when he actually won his North America card. Am I supposed to turn a blind eye? They mentioned something about being on the same team. He's getting paid to work for Muscular Development. I get paid for the work that I do. You get paid for the work that you do. There's nothing about this. It has nothing to do with team. I'm an analyst. I'm a reporter. They like to say that you're not a reporter, but I've been writing since 1986, my own columns for Flex Magazine, Muscle Mag, now Muscular Development, and Muscle Fitness. Yeah. I'm not sure that Dallas's focus is there. We know that he's off balance emotionally. I'm sure he's got a lot of pressure on him from all angles. That pressure's not coming from me, so he needs to get me out of his head, because I'll be sitting in the front row of his next contest writing down what I see. And if the athlete gets to the point where they're going to dictate to the critics and to the journalists and to the writers how they report on what we see, that's when I'll walk away from the business. The publications are looking for an analysis. I flew to Australia with two purposes, one to MC, the other to analyze. Prior to the Arnold Classic in Columbus, Ohio, if that had been Cedric McMillan, I would have had an opinion on Cedric McMillan. Dallas doesn't have to like me. He doesn't even know me. But that being said, I revered the people that came before me. Mike Christian, I won the Nationals in 1987 with perfect scores, barely 22 years old. Mike Christian said, I'm going to have to be a whole lot better if I plan on moving to the next level. And I was at my peak. I was maxed out. I just won unanimously. And my mentor told me that's not going to be good enough to beat him. And what happened? I went to the Mr. Olympia and I got 13th place. My first pro show, I was 4th. I was supposed to win it. And I took some time off. I stopped in 1989. I came back in 1990, won the Ironman, and I moved up to 3rd place in the Mr. Olympia. Dallas can do what he wants. He's surrounded by people that should have his best interests at heart. But as a spectator, what I saw in Pittsburgh 3 weeks out, what I saw in New Zealand, and what I saw in Australia, that's not the Dallas McCarver that we know. Something's going wrong in his camp, and he's allowing it to happen. I'm not going to make the excuses for a 25-year-old grown man getting paid by other grown men and is also paying for their services that he's young. He's not young. I was 25 before. I was out of the house and doing those things. So he needs to let go of the preoccupation with me. My advice to Dallas McCarver is get Shawn Ray out of your head. Get back in the gym. Do the things that got you there. Stop listening to all these people and focus on your career. I'm not going anywhere, and no one else is going anywhere as it relates to covering the sport. My opinion is mine, and I think the guy's a future Mr. Olympia, but we can see the chinks in his armor. This is a Mike Tyson moment for him, a Terrell Owens moment. Great athlete, great potential, but we can see that he's got some chinks in his armor, and the only thing that's going to fix that, Ron, is going to be time. You don't have to prove anything to Shawn Ray. He's got to prove it to himself that he can toughen up that skin, take the criticism, compartmentalize it, and go about the business of bodybuilding. Don't focus on me. He's done interviews about me. He's done Facebook postings about me, and he's answering questions about me. We should be talking about this kid's longevity and future in the sport. It's a sad day in bodybuilding that when a contest is over, he didn't talk about the crisis that he was in. And I know that those EMTs backstage pumping him full of the IV couldn't assess his condition and label it respiratory upper bronchial infection. And so he didn't go see a doctor. A doctor didn't tell him that. The EMTs didn't tell him that. He self-diagnosed himself with that, and that's kind of where I have issues with it. There's more going on there, and he needs to get his camp in order and keep my name out of his mouth.
Right. Well, I just want to interject. I want to backtrack and say that I do think he has made serious improvements since he turned pro back in 2012. And he's not, he still has a ways to go, but he's improved body parts. He's put on a ton of mass. He still has so much potential. I think another thing, obviously, that got him really upset was, you made some statements about his coach, and his coach may have, may have worked with athletes and harmed them in some way, and he took great offense to that.
Well, don't sugarcoat it, okay? He's working with a coach that has a history and a track record, both good and bad. And if he wants to defend his coach, have at it. I was talking about Dallas McCarver. And when it's an A and B conversation, you go defend your coach and you go defend your friends, but you're a professional bodybuilder. Don't look unprofessional when you put yourself out there to be scrutinized. This stems from me talking about his appearance in Pittsburgh, and it's carried over to me talking about his coach. I don't have an axe to grind with Dallas McCarver. Chad Nichols has an issue with me. He knows where I'm at. Chad Nichols has yet to call me up if he's got an issue with me. But the facts speak for themselves. I'm not making up lies about the things that have gone on in his camp. Now, he's 25 years old. He's had 3 or 4 coaches. Where's Chad Nichols going to be in 3 or 4 years from now? We don't know. If it doesn't work out in the next year or 2 for him, he may be gone, and you have to defend the next coach. Dallas has got to get control of his camp and focus on his career. Stop defending these guys. They're grown. Chad Nichols is in his 50s. He's a grown man. Let him defend himself.
Yeah, okay. One thing in Dallas's rant with the bullet points on Facebook that I just thought you should address real briefly was that you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth to a well-off family. I don't know your whole history, but I know that that's not accurate. So what was your background?
Well, it sounds like that's a Donald Trump moment when he called Meryl Streep an average actress, right? I mean, Meryl's got like 20 Academy Awards, and he minimized her because she criticized him. I think Dallas is looking for shock value with that comment. He doesn't know anything about me. I mean, I'm a bodybuilding historian, but I certainly don't know like the upbringing of Lee Labrada and Lee Haney. But my story is well documented. I'm the youngest of 8. I'm the son of a janitor. I cleaned toilets all the way through college. The first paycheck that I got wasn't from my dad. I worked with and for my dad. My dad kept gas in my car and food in my stomach. I didn't draw a paycheck from Ray Clean Building and Maintenance. But all of us worked for my dad. My entire neighborhood worked for my dad. It was a family-owned business. So I couldn't tell my dad when it was time to go clean a toilet after I ran for 200 yards in high school football that I'm tired and I'm a celebrity when I win the Teenage Mr. America. It's beneath me. I cleaned toilets and I washed windows. I dumped ashtrays. I cleaned industrial buildings. I cleaned fast food restaurants and even restaurants that we went to as families. And sometimes I was embarrassed. But it got to a point where it became a discipline for me. It wasn't a shame to do that. It was manual labor. If my bodybuilding industry fell apart tomorrow and I got a wife and 2 kids, I could pick up a mop and a bucket like nobody's business, and I can clean windows and dump trash, and I can start Shawn Ray's building and maintenance like my father. That's how long I did that for. No one chooses that work unless you can make money. My dad raised an entire family on that. He made a career out of being a janitor. He was an electrical engineer, 3 years in the Air Force, and walked off the job at Rockwell after 15 years to start a janitorial business and raise his kids. So that wasn't really fair. I mean, my first car that I had, I paid for. I bought it's documented in the Lifestyles of the Fit and Famous. I bought a 1988
white Corvette
edition Corvette. You know how I bought that, Ron? I got $1,000. I got a $1,000 contract from Joe Weider, and I bought that car after my first Mr. Olympia. The same way that Dallas McCarver's out there living what I lived 30 years ago. Yeah. I've been retired for 16 years, so to call me out in that regard, I can take it personal, but people that know me, they know. It's laughable for a kid to come out and say, I got a silver spoon. You know how much harder it would be to get up out of bed every day and go to the gym and do what we do, and you got a bunch of money in the bank because you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth?
Yeah.
It just doesn't work like that. That was a low blow.
Okay. All right, so the last thing I want you to address, if you would, is that Dallas believes that you have it in for him, that you don't like him, that you've always been critical of him. He thinks you have something personal against him. So do you have anything against Dallas?
Well, the good thing is that we're living in the day and age of YouTube. So I encourage everyone to go to YouTube, type in Shawn Ray and Dallas McCarver. And I'll let those videos speak for themselves because they go back a good 2 or 3 years of me talking to Dallas. And then fast forward it to the Dallas McCarver Pittsburgh commentary with Shawn Ray Unleashed. And you tell me if I have it in for him. I told you I did an interview after prejudging at the Arnold Classic, and I still believe even then that this guy's got everything it takes. But now I'm of the opinion that he's shown us a weakness that I didn't know even existed. That a slight criticism, and mind you, this is an industry made up of a lot of misfits. We've got people that are coming into the sport that have no family. We have guys that live in their cars that are trying to live the dream and train at Gold's Gym and go over to Oxygen Gym. that come from being fat and overweight, come from being skinny, that have eating disorders, that have drug addictions, lots of insecurities in this industry, and they manifest themselves under different circumstances. And he mentioned something about psychology, and I know I went to school for that. What we're seeing is a little bit of a meltdown and a chink in the armor with respect to the psychology and the weakness. He's got to get a tougher mind. He's got to get thicker skin, because I'm not the enemy. I've been doing this for years, and when I was complaining, when I was competing, I was complaining about things that were legitimate. I wanted the judges to show their scores. I wanted every Mr. Olympia competitor on that stage to get prize money. I wanted the judges to be rotated so that it's fair and it's unbiased. I wanted to make sure that if a guy goes on stage with a torn bicep and a bloated stomach, that he'd be marked down and not rewarded. So when you listen to the arguments I made when I was competing, they weren't directed at people. They were directed at issues. Yeah. And a lot of those issues, Dallas is enjoying the fruit of that labor, including the very first thing that they do as professional bodybuilders. When they walk on a pro stage, they're introduced individually, one at a time, hitting their 8 compulsory poses because of the hard work that I did when I retired. Prior to that, if you remember, all the bodybuilders were paraded out on stage and stood in a quarter symmetry round, and we did quarter turns for 45 minutes before we ever hit a double bicep.
Right. Yeah.
I changed that. And I don't need to be patted on the back. There's a lot of things that I've done that Dallas is actually benefiting from in this industry, and I've done everything that he's trying to do now. He implied that I had an issue with race. Dorian Yates and I are cool. Dorian may wind up at my show in Hawaii that I'm promoting November the 4th. Does he know that the year I retired, I emceed the pro show in England and slept at Dorian's house and took pictures with all those 6 Sandow Olympia trophies? Does he know that I did the only documentary on the history of bodybuilding? Does he know that I not only knew Joe Reeder, but I worked for him for 17 years? I knew Larry Scott. He won the Olympia when I was born in '65. I've been retired 16 years, so when you put it in perspective, Dallas McCarver wasn't even in high school 16 years ago. Yeah. So he's young. I'm letting him have a little bit of a loose leash on that, but he needs to mature, get mature, surround himself with the right people, focus on being Mr. Olympia, and try to finish the show. But I can tell you this, don't compete when you're sick, because when you compete when you're sick, this is exactly what happens. I guarantee you one thing, through all of this madness, Dallas McCarver will never take his shirt off to be videotaped in front of somebody like Jim Mannion again without showing up and being prepared. The failure was he had 2 other people there that could have prevented that as well. Had he showed up without a camera and did that for Jim Mannion, none of us would be even talking about that. Yeah. But he's accomplished, so he did 3 friggin' shows. One, he screwed up in Australia. Sick or not, he showed flashes of brilliance. I think the judges, Steve Weinberger, they had him in 3rd place, so he was going backwards. Yeah. Who wants to be sick from February to March and have experienced workers with you that won't tell you to just stay in your hotel? Come home. Shut it down. They just kept pushing until the kid fell apart and he's crying on Facebook and passing out on stage. Those are things that played out in front of everybody. I can be brutal and I can be ruthless with my criticism, but it's for you to get better. I have no financial reward in it. I'm not going to temper talking about a guy that walks out there with a belly button that's sticking out, or has zits, or has gyno, or doesn't know how to pose. He's posing with crappy music. My critique is going to stay the same. If you want to get a pat on the back, do something that's worthy of a pat on the back.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I think you said it all fairly briefly. So thank you, Shawn Ray, for Ron Harris. This has been the first Ronline chat. Hope you all enjoyed it. And last thing I want to say is, Dallas, we wish you the best. We really do. You have so much potential. I do believe you can be Mr. Olympia. You know, this sickness, whatever, just a little bump in the road. And we do believe you will be one of the greats in the coming years. So that's all.
I'm on record as saying the exact same thing.
Absolutely. So good night, everybody.